Riley Whitmore was about to be buried alive, and only one person in the crowd of 300 mourners knew the truth. Christopher Kane, single dad janitor with a past as a private investigator, stood at the back of the billionaire's funeral watching the closed casket and knew something was very wrong, because he'd seen Riley's fingers move through the ventilation hole, and he had exactly 60 seconds to stop them from lowering her into the ground. If you want to know how a janitor stopped a billionaire's funeral and exposed a murder plot, hit that subscribe button. This story will prove that sometimes the person everyone thinks is dead is the only one truly alive. Riley Whitmore was 32 years old, heiress to a $5 billion pharmaceutical empire, and according to everyone at her funeral, dead from a sudden heart attack 3 days ago. Except she wasn't dead. She was trapped inside a casket, drugged into paralysis, unable to move or scream or do anything except wait to be buried alive by the person who'd tried to murder her. 3 days earlier, Riley had been alive, healthy, running Whitmore Pharmaceuticals with the same ruthless efficiency her father had built the company on before his death 2 years ago. She'd inherited everything at 30. The company, the estate, the responsibility of employing 15,000 people across 3 continents. Riley had been raised for this, groomed from childhood to take over the family business. Her father, Marcus Whitmore Sr., had made that clear from the time she could walk. You're a Whitmore. That means excellence. That means leadership. That means never showing weakness. Her childhood had been training for this role. Private tutors in business and finance, summer internships at the company starting at age 14, board meetings she was required to attend and summarize starting at 16. Her father didn't believe in work-life balance. He believed in legacy, in building something that would outlast him. Relationships are temporary, he'd told Riley when she was 18 and wanted to go to prom instead of attending a shareholders' meeting. The company is forever. Choose wisely. Riley chose the company, always. Graduated top of her class at Harvard Business School, worked her way up through every department at Whitmore Pharmaceuticals, proved she'd earned her position through competence, not just nepotism. By the time her father died of a massive stroke at 65, Riley was ready. She took over at 30. The board was skeptical, a woman, young, untested in crisis. They questioned every decision for the first 6 months. Riley proved them wrong by increasing company value by 40% in year 1, by securing 3 major pharmaceutical patents, by outmaneuvering competitors in bidding wars for smaller biotech firms. Within 2 years, Riley had transformed Whitmore Pharmaceuticals from a mid-tier company into a pharmaceutical giant. The board stopped questioning her, started following her lead, started realizing that Riley Whitmore was more ruthless and brilliant than her father had ever been. So Riley never showed weakness. She worked 80-hour weeks, made difficult decisions without hesitation, fired executives who underperformed, approved layoffs when quarterly earnings demanded it, built her reputation as a brilliant but cold CEO who cared more about profit margins than people. The media called her the Ice Queen. Forbes called her a visionary. Her employees called her demanding but fair. Her few friends, mostly college acquaintances she barely saw, called her unreachable. Riley didn't care. Success required sacrifice. She'd sacrificed personal relationships for professional achievement. No regrets. She had no time for relationships, no interest in marriage or children, no room in her life for anything except the company. Her few attempts at dating ended quickly when men realized she wouldn't rearrange her schedule for dinner or cancel meetings for romantic getaways. "You're married to your job," one ex-boyfriend had said bitterly. "There's no room for anyone else." He was right. Riley didn't deny it. The company was her priority. Everything else was secondary. She lived alone in her family's estate. ate dinner at her desk most nights, fell asleep reviewing financial reports, woke up planning strategy. Her assistant, Victoria Chen, had been with her for 5 years, efficient, organized, anticipated Riley's needs before she voiced them. Riley trusted Victoria more than anyone else in her life. Trusted her with passwords, access to accounts, knowledge of Riley's schedule and movements. That trust was a mistake. 3 days ago, Riley had been working late in her home office. Victoria brought her usual evening tea, Earl Grey with honey. Riley drank it while reviewing a merger proposal. Didn't notice the bitter aftertaste until it was too late. The paralysis set in slowly. First her fingers went numb. Then her arms felt heavy. She tried to stand and her legs wouldn't respond. Tried to call for help and her voice wouldn't work. Tried to reach for her phone and her hands wouldn't move. Victoria stood in the doorway watching with cold calculation. "I'm sorry it has to be this way," Victoria said. "Not sorry at all. But you've become a problem. The company's about to go public with new drug trials that will make billions. Your cousin Marcus has promised me $10 million and a VP position to ensure you don't interfere. He inherits if you die. I get paid. Everyone wins. Except you." Riley tried to scream. Nothing came out. Her body was completely paralyzed. Only her mind worked, trapped inside a body that wouldn't respond. The drug is called paraloxin. We developed it for surgical anesthesia. Paralyzes the body completely while leaving the mind conscious. Perfect for your situation. You'll appear dead. Doctors will find no heartbeat, no pulse, no breathing. But you'll be aware of everything, every moment, until they bury you and you suffocate 6 feet under. Victoria checked Riley's pulse. Found nothing. The drug slowed her heart rate to undetectable levels, slowed her breathing to almost nothing, made her appear clinically dead while keeping her brain conscious and aware. "Your cousin Marcus will call 911 in about 10 minutes. He'll find you collapsed at your desk, dead from sudden cardiac arrest. So tragic, so unexpected. The autopsy will show heart failure. No one will suspect murder. And by the time the drug wears off in about 72 hours, you'll be buried in the family plot." Victoria left. Riley sat frozen in her chair, unable to move, unable to scream, unable to do anything except wait. Her mind was sharp. Her body was useless. She was trapped inside herself, fully conscious, fully aware, completely helpless. Marcus arrived exactly 10 minutes later, called 911, performed CPR that Riley couldn't feel, cried convincing tears while paramedics worked to revive her, rode in the ambulance holding her hand and telling her he loved her, all while knowing she'd be dead in 3 days. The hospital declared her dead on arrival. Massive cardiac arrest. No prior heart condition, no warning signs, just a healthy 32-year-old woman who dropped dead at her desk. Tragic, unexpected. The doctors shook their heads and signed the death certificate. Riley was aware of all of it, heard every conversation, felt them move her body onto a gurney, felt the cold of the morgue, heard Marcus making funeral arrangements, heard Victoria offering to help coordinate everything, heard them plan to bury her in 3 days. She screamed inside her mind. No one heard. She tried to move. Nothing responded. She was trapped in a living nightmare, conscious and aware inside a body everyone thought was a corpse. The funeral home prepared her body. Riley felt hands washing her, felt them dress her in the designer suit she'd worn to board meetings, felt them place her in the casket, felt the lid close, leaving her in darkness. 72 hours. That's how long the drug would keep her paralyzed. Then her body would recover. But by then she'd be 6 feet underground, would suffocate in her casket, would die for real, alone in the dark, buried alive. The funeral was planned for day 3, the same day the drug would wear off. Perfect timing. Riley would regain movement just in time to experience the horror of being buried alive, would die clawing at the inside of her casket, screaming where no one could hear. Victoria had planned it perfectly, almost. Christopher Kane was mopping the floor of the funeral home chapel when he noticed something wrong. He'd been working there for 6 months, ever since he'd left his career as a private investigator to raise his daughter Emma full-time after his wife died from cancer 2 years ago. Investigation work had been Christopher's life for 15 years. He'd started as a police detective, worked homicide for 8 years, built a reputation as the guy who closed impossible cases, the guy who noticed details everyone else missed, the guy who never gave up on victims. Then his wife Sarah got sick, stage 4 breast cancer, 6 months from diagnosis to death. Christopher took family leave to care for her, watched the woman he loved waste away, held her hand through chemo that didn't work, made promises to Emma that Mommy would be okay even when he knew she wouldn't. Sarah died 3 weeks after Emma's 4th birthday. Christopher was devastated, lost, alone with a grieving 4-year-old who kept asking when Mommy was coming home. He tried to go back to police work, couldn't focus, couldn't sleep, couldn't function knowing Emma was with babysitters instead of parents. So he quit, left the police force, opened his own private investigation firm, specialized in corporate fraud and embezzlement. The work was challenging, paid better than police work, gave him flexibility. He could work from home sometimes, could take Emma to investigations that didn't involve danger. For 2 years, it worked. Christopher built a successful practice, earned a reputation as the best investigator in the region, had more clients than he could handle. Emma adjusted to life without her mother, started kindergarten, made friends, seemed to be healing. Then came the Sanderson case, a corporate embezzlement investigation that turned violent. Christopher was following a suspect who realized he was being tailed. High-speed chase through downtown. Christopher's car was hit. He walked away with bruises, but he realized how close he'd come to dying, how close Emma had come to being an orphan. That night, Christopher looked at his 5-year-old daughter sleeping peacefully and made a decision. Emma had already lost her mother. She couldn't lose him too. Investigation work was too dangerous, too unpredictable, too likely to leave Emma alone. So Christopher walked away from the career he loved, taken a job as a janitor at Pleasant View Funeral Home. Steady hours, 9 to 5. No danger, no car chases, no suspects with guns. Decent pay, benefits, flexible schedule that let him pick Emma up from kindergarten every day. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't exciting. It wasn't what he'd spent 15 years training for, but it let him be the dad Emma needed. His former colleagues thought he was crazy. "You're wasting your talent," his old partner from the police force had said. "You're one of the best investigators I've ever seen, and you're mopping floors." "I'm being a father," Christopher had replied. "That's more important than being a good investigator." He meant it. But he'd be lying if he said he didn't miss the work, missed the challenge of piecing together evidence, missed the thrill of solving cases, missed feeling like he was making a difference beyond clean floors. His investigator instincts never shut off, though. He noticed things, details other people missed, like the fact that the deceased woman's fingernails looked freshly manicured, like most corpses don't have that kind of color in their nail beds, like the ventilation hole in the side of the casket, standard in expensive models to prevent pressure buildup, had condensation around it. Condensation meant moisture. Moisture meant breathing. Dead people don't breathe. Christopher moved closer to the casket during the viewing, pretended to clean nearby, watched the ventilation hole, saw the faintest movement of air, saw something that looked like a finger pressing against the mesh from inside. His investigator brain kicked in. Dead bodies don't move. Dead bodies don't create condensation from breathing. Dead bodies don't press fingers against ventilation holes. Someone inside that casket was alive. The funeral was massive. 300 guests. Corporate executives, business partners, politicians, everyone who was anyone in the pharmaceutical world. The deceased was Riley Whitmore, Billionaire CEO. Died suddenly from cardiac arrest at 32. Tragic loss. The eulogies went on for an hour. Christopher watched from the back, watched the woman's cousin Marcus give a tearful speech about loss and legacy. Watched the assistant Victoria Chen sitting in the front row dabbing at tears. Watched them prepare to close the casket and move to the burial. Watched the finger press against the ventilation hole one more time. A desperate, tiny movement, a sign of life where everyone expected death. Christopher had a choice. Stay quiet, let the funeral proceed. Avoid making a scene, or trust his instincts. Stop the burial, risk his job, risk looking insane in front of 300 people. He thought about Emma, about being the parent she needed, about teaching her by example that doing the right thing mattered more than being comfortable, about the woman in that casket who was about to be buried alive. He made his choice. Christopher walked down the center aisle as pallbearers prepared to carry the casket to the hearse. 300 people turned to stare at the janitor in a cheap suit, interrupting a billionaire's funeral. "Stop!" Christopher said loudly. "Don't close that casket. She's not dead." Gasps, murmurs, confusion. Marcus stepped forward, face red with anger. "What are you doing? This is a funeral. Have some respect." "I'm trying to save her life. She's breathing. I saw movement inside the casket. She's alive." "That's impossible. She's been dead for 3 days. The doctors certified it. You're delusional." "Then let me open the casket and prove it. If I'm wrong, I'll apologize and leave. But if I'm right, you'll thank me for stopping you from burying her alive." Victoria stood up. Her face was calm, but her eyes were calculating. "This is outrageous. Security, remove this man. He's clearly unstable. I'm not leaving until someone checks her. Open the casket. Check for vital signs. It'll take 2 minutes. What's the harm?" The funeral director looked uncertain. "Mr. Whitmore, perhaps we should—" "Absolutely not. This man is disrupting my cousin's funeral with insane accusations. Remove him immediately." Christopher stood his ground. "I worked as a private investigator for 12 years. I know the signs of life. I'm telling you there's condensation around the ventilation hole. That means breathing. Dead bodies don't breathe. Check her, please." The crowd was murmuring. Some people looked curious. Some looked angry. A few looked concerned. The funeral director was clearly torn between respecting the family's wishes and addressing a legitimate concern. Then someone in the crowd, a doctor based on his introduction during eulogies, spoke up. "It wouldn't hurt to check. If he's wrong, we continue. If he's right, we save a life. Open the casket." Marcus looked furious. Victoria looked panicked. Security hesitated. The funeral director made the call. "Open it, just to be certain." Pallbearers opened the casket lid. Riley Whitmore lay inside, perfectly still, dressed in an expensive suit, hands folded on her chest, eyes closed. No visible signs of life. She looked exactly like every other body Christopher had seen in 2 years of working at the funeral home, except for the single tear running down her cheek. Christopher pointed. "Look, she's crying. Dead people don't cry. Check her pulse. Check for breathing. Do it now." The doctor pushed forward, checked Riley's neck for a pulse. Found nothing. Checked her wrist. Nothing. Leaned close to her mouth to check for breathing. Very faint. Almost imperceptible. But there. "She's alive," the doctor said, shocked. "Barely, but alive. Call an ambulance. Now." Chaos erupted. People shouting. Marcus backing away. Victoria trying to slip out of the chapel. Christopher blocked her path. "Going somewhere?" "I don't know what you're talking about." You knew. You were sitting in the front row, crying fake tears while your boss was about to be buried alive. You knew. Victoria's expression hardened. You can't prove anything. We'll see about that. Police are already on their way. I called them before I interrupted the funeral, told them I suspected foul play. They'll want to talk to you. Paramedics arrived, rushed Riley to the hospital. Doctors worked to identify what was in her system, found traces of paraloxin, a drug still in experimental trials, a drug developed by Whitmore Pharmaceuticals, a drug that shouldn't exist outside of controlled lab environments. Victoria was arrested. So was Marcus. Both denied everything. But hospital security cameras showed Victoria entering Riley's office the night she collapsed. Showed her leaving 15 minutes before Marcus discovered the body. Showed her carrying a thermal container that later tested positive for paraloxin residue. Marcus's phone record showed dozens of calls with Victoria in the weeks before Riley's death. Emails discussing the upcoming IPO, discussions about Marcus inheriting the company, promises of payment and promotions once Riley was out of the way. The evidence was overwhelming. Victoria confessed first, explained the plan, the drug, the fake death, the burial that would have killed Riley for real when the drug wore off. She gave up Marcus in exchange for a lighter sentence. Both were charged with attempted murder and conspiracy. Riley woke up in the hospital 4 days later, groggy, confused, alive. Doctors explained what had happened, how she'd been poisoned, how she'd been minutes away from being buried alive, how a janitor had noticed something no one else saw and stopped her funeral. "I want to meet him," Riley said. "The man who saved me, Christopher Kane. I want to thank him." Christopher was in the hospital cafeteria drinking terrible coffee when Riley's private nurse found him. "Ms. Whitmore would like to see you." Christopher followed her to Riley's private room. The billionaire heiress was sitting up in bed, still weak, still recovering, but alive. Her eyes were sharp, intelligent, focused. "You saved my life," Riley said without preamble. "Why?" Christopher shrugged. "It was the right thing to do. You could have stayed quiet, kept your job, avoided making a scene. Most people would have." "I'm not most people. I saw something wrong. I couldn't walk away." "You worked as a private investigator before becoming a janitor. Why the career change?" "My wife died 2 years ago. Cancer. I have a 5-year-old daughter who needs me home for dinner every night. Investigation work didn't allow that. Janitorial work does." Riley studied him. "You gave up a career you loved to be present for your daughter. Being a good father matters more than having an impressive job title. Emma needs stability. She needs a parent who shows up. I can't be that if I'm on stakeouts at midnight. That's admirable. Most people wouldn't make that sacrifice. Most people aren't single parents. You do what you have to do." Riley was quiet for a moment. "I almost died. Was conscious through all of it. Felt them prepare my body. Felt them close the casket. Knew I'd be buried alive. Couldn't do anything to stop it. It was the most terrifying experience of my life. I'm sorry you went through that. Don't be sorry. Be proud. You saved me. You trusted your instincts. You did something difficult. You're a hero. I'm a janitor who pays attention. That's all. You're more than that. You were an investigator. A good one, based on your record. I looked you up. 98% case closure rate, specializing in corporate fraud and embezzlement. You were one of the best." Christopher raised an eyebrow. "You investigated me?" "I investigate everyone. It's how I stay alive, or at least how I'm supposed to stay alive. Clearly I missed Victoria and Marcus's plans." "No one's perfect, even billionaire CEOs." Riley smiled slightly. "I like you, Christopher Kane. You're direct, honest. You don't treat me like I'm fragile or like I'm some untouchable billionaire. You treat me like a person. That's what you are. Person who almost got murdered. Person who survived, but still just a person. I want to offer you a job. Christopher paused. Doing what? Head of security at Whitmore Pharmaceuticals. I need someone I can trust, someone who sees what others miss, someone who actually saved my life when my own security team missed an assassination attempt. You're qualified, you're perceptive, and you've already proven you'll do the right thing even when it's difficult. I appreciate the offer, but I'm not interested. Riley looked surprised. Why not? It pays significantly more than janitorial work, has benefits, prestige, opportunity. It also has long hours, unpredictable schedule, travel. I can't do that. I have Emma. She needs me home. I'll make accommodations, flexible schedule, no travel required unless you approve it, child care assistance. Whatever you need. Why do you care? You could hire anyone, professional security firms, ex-military, people with corporate experience. Because those people missed Victoria's plot. You didn't. Because I trust you. Because I'm terrified of going back to my life without someone watching my back who actually cares if I live or die. My corporate security team was paid to protect me, and they failed. You stopped my funeral as a janitor with nothing to gain. That means something. Christopher considered it. Thought about Emma, about stability, about teaching his daughter the importance of doing meaningful work, about the fact that Riley was right. He did miss investigation work, missed using his skills for something beyond mopping floors. I need to think about it. Talk to Emma. Make sure it works for our life. Fair. Take a week. The offer stands. Christopher left the hospital thinking about choices, about careers and fatherhood, and what it meant to do work that mattered. About Riley Whitmore, brilliant, intense, nearly murdered, and the fact that saving her life had felt right in a way nothing had felt right since his wife died. Emma's opinion mattered most. That evening, Christopher explained the situation. Riley's offer, the job opportunity, the potential schedule changes. Would I still see you every day? Emma asked seriously. Yes, that's non-negotiable. I'd make sure I was home for dinner and bedtime. The job would have to work around you. Do you want to do it? Christopher thought about it honestly. Part of me does. I miss investigation work, miss using my brain that way, but I won't do it if it means less time with you. Emma considered this with the gravity only 5-year-olds could manage. Ms. Riley almost died, and you saved her, and now she needs help staying safe. That's important, right? It is. Then you should help her, because helping people is what heroes do, and you're my hero, Daddy. Christopher's heart clenched. You sure? I'm sure. But you have to promise to still read me bedtime stories. Every single night, no exceptions. Then it's okay. You can take the job. Christopher called Riley the next morning, accepted the position with his conditions clearly stated. Flexible schedule, no overnight travel. Emma came first, always. Riley agreed without hesitation. Christopher Kane became head of security at Whitmore Pharmaceuticals. His first act was firing the entire existing security team and rebuilding from scratch. His second act was implementing protocols Victoria had circumvented. His third act was running background checks on everyone with access to Riley. He found 3 more potential threats, 2 corporate spies planted by rival companies, 1 financial officer embezzling funds through shell companies. All of them were exposed and removed within the first month. Riley was impressed. You're good at this. I told you I was. You just had to trust me. I do trust you, more than I've trusted anyone in years. That trust built over the following months. Christopher became not just Riley's head of security, but her advisor, her sounding board. The person who questioned her decisions not to undermine her, but to ensure she'd considered all angles. They'd have coffee in her office every morning. Christopher would review security reports. Riley would discuss business strategy. They'd debate, challenge each other, push back when something didn't make sense. "You're planning to approve this merger?" Christopher asked one morning, reviewing a file. "Yes. Why?" "Because the company you're merging with has ties to Marcus's attorney. Same law firm, same financial backers. Seems suspicious." Riley paused, reviewed the file again. "You're right. I missed that. That's why I'm here, to catch what you miss. I'm usually the one who catches everything. Nobody catches everything. That's why you have me." Riley smiled. "What would I do without you?" "Hopefully we never find out." They worked well together. Riley's brilliance combined with Christopher's investigative instincts created a formidable team. The company thrived, security tightened, threats were identified and neutralized before they became problems. The first major threat Christopher uncovered came 3 months into his tenure. He was reviewing employee access logs and noticed unusual patterns. Someone was accessing Riley's private files at odd hours, always late at night, always from different terminals, always covering their tracks. Christopher set up monitoring software, tracked the access patterns, followed the digital footprints through proxy servers and encrypted channels. It took 2 weeks, but he identified the culprit. Janet Morrison, VP of Research and Development. She'd been selling Riley's strategic plans to a competitor for the past year. Christopher brought the evidence to Riley. "She's been undermining you for months. Every merger you planned, they knew about in advance. Every patent you filed, they filed competing patents. She's the leak." Riley looked at the evidence. Her face was calm, but her eyes were furious. "How much has she cost us?" "Estimated 200 million in lost opportunities. But that's not the worst part. She has access to your personal calendar, your movements, your security protocols. If someone wanted to hurt you, she could provide everything they'd need." Riley fired Janet that afternoon, had her escorted from the building by security, filed criminal charges for corporate espionage. The competitor who'd been buying information faced lawsuits. Janet went to prison for 5 years. "You saved the company," Riley told Christopher, "and probably saved my life. Again. That's what you hired me to do. Most people would have missed what you caught. The access patterns were subtle, hidden, but you noticed. Because you're brilliant at this. Why did you ever stop being an investigator?" Christopher told her about Sarah, about Emma, about the choice between career and fatherhood. Riley listened without interrupting. When he finished, she said quietly, "You gave up something you love to protect someone you love more. That's admirable. It's what parents do. We sacrifice. Not all parents. Mine didn't. My father chose the company over me every time. Missed birthday parties for board meetings, skipped school events for business trips. I learned early that I wasn't the priority. The company was. I told myself that's how it had to be. But watching you with Emma makes me wonder if my father was wrong, if maybe relationships matter more than quarterly earnings." It was the most vulnerable Christopher had ever seen Riley, the Ice Queen showing cracks in her armor. "Your father built an empire, but he also left you alone. There's no right answer, just different choices with different costs. What if I'm making the wrong choice? What if I'm so focused on the company that I'm missing life? Are you happy?" Riley considered it. "I'm successful. I'm respected. I'm financially secure. But happy? I don't know. I eat dinner alone every night. I haven't been on a date in 2 years. I have employees but not friends. Success but not connection. Is that happiness? Only you can answer that. What would make you happy, Christopher? If you could have anything?" Christopher looked at her, really looked at her, at the woman who'd become so important to him. Honestly, this conversation, this connection with someone who sees me as more than just the janitor who got lucky. You challenge me. You make me think. You make me want to be better. That's what makes me happy. Riley held his gaze. You do the same for me. You're the only person who calls me out when I'm wrong, who treats me like a person instead of a title, who makes me laugh, who makes me feel seen. I value that more than I can express. They sat in comfortable silence, both aware something had shifted between them, but neither ready to name it. Emma would visit the office sometimes, would sit in the security office doing homework while Christopher worked. Riley would stop by with snacks, would ask about Emma's day, would treat the 5-year-old with the same respect she gave corporate executives. I like Ms. Riley, Emma told Christopher one evening. She's nice, and she doesn't talk to me like I'm a baby. She's good at seeing people for who they are. Do you like her? She's my boss. Of course I like working for her. No, I mean, do you like her? Like how Prince Charming likes Cinderella? Christopher paused. Why would you ask that? Because you smile different when you talk about her. And you talk about her a lot. And when she's around, you're happier. Also, she brought me cookies yesterday and said she made them special for me because she knows I like chocolate chip. That's what people do when they want to be part of your family. Out of the mouths of children. Christopher didn't have a good answer because Emma was right. Somewhere in the past 6 months, his professional respect for Riley had shifted into something more, something he couldn't quite name but definitely felt. He pushed those feelings aside. Riley was his boss, his professional relationship. Getting involved romantically would be complicated, inappropriate, potentially disastrous, but feelings don't follow logic. And over the following months, Christopher realized he was falling for Riley Whitmore, for her brilliance, her intensity, the way she commanded a boardroom, the way she was gentle with Emma, the way she challenged him, the way she listened, the way she made him feel valued, the way she admitted vulnerability instead of pretending to be perfect. Riley was falling too, for Christopher's integrity, his honesty, the way he called her out when she was wrong, the way he protected her without making her feel weak, the way he balanced being a father with being a professional, the way he made her laugh, the way he saw her as a person, not just a CEO, the way he'd sacrificed his career to be present for his daughter, the way he valued people over profit. Neither of them said anything. Both of them were terrified of ruining what they had. Professional respect, friendship, trust. Admitting romantic feelings risked all of it. But tension was building. Lingering glances across conference rooms, hands brushing when passing documents. Conversations that went longer than necessary because neither wanted to leave. The awareness that something was growing between them, whether they acknowledged it or not. Until the night, everything changed. Riley was working late. Christopher was finishing security rounds before heading home. He found Riley in her office staring at financial reports with tears streaming down her face. "What's wrong?" Christopher asked, immediately alert for threats. "Nothing. Everything. I don't know." Riley wiped her eyes. "I'm sorry. This is unprofessional. You're human. Humans cry. What happened? It's the anniversary. 2 years since the poisoning. 2 years since Victoria and Marcus tried to bury me alive. 2 years since you saved my life. I thought I was over it. Thought I'd moved past the trauma. But today I keep thinking about being trapped in that casket, about feeling them close the lid, about knowing I was going to die and being helpless to stop it." Christopher sat down across from her. Trauma doesn't follow timelines. You went through something horrific. You're allowed to still be affected by it. "I'm supposed to be strong. Supposed to have it together. Supposed to be the invincible CEO who doesn't fall apart." You're supposed to be human, and humans fall apart sometimes. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you real." Riley looked at him. "Do you ever fall apart?" "All the time. Usually after Emma's asleep when I'm alone with my thoughts. I think about my wife dying, about raising Emma alone, about all the ways I might fail her, about the fact that I'm terrified every single day that I'm not enough. You're an amazing father. Emma adores you. And you're an amazing CEO. Your employees respect you. But we both still have moments where we doubt ourselves, where we break down. That's normal." Riley was quiet. Then, "Thank you for being here, for listening, for not treating me like I'm fragile." "You're not fragile. You're one of the strongest people I know. But strong people are allowed to have weak moments. That's what makes them human." They sat in comfortable silence. Then Riley said quietly, "I'm terrified of trusting people. After Victoria and Marcus, I don't know who's safe, who might be lying, who might want to hurt me. You're the only person I trust completely, and that terrifies me too." "Why?" "Because trusting people gives them power to hurt you, and I've been hurt enough." Christopher understood that. "I get it. After my wife died, I didn't want to trust anyone either. Didn't want to risk losing someone again. It's easier to keep everyone at a distance. Safer. But lonely. Very lonely." Riley met his eyes. "Christopher, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you ever think about us? About what we could be if we weren't boss and employee? If we were just two people who trusted each other?" Christopher's heart raced. "Yes, more than I should. Me too. I tell myself it's inappropriate, that mixing professional and personal is a mistake, that I should keep boundaries. But then I see you with Emma, and I think about what it would be like to be part of your family. Or I work late, and you're the only person I want to talk to. Or you challenge me in meetings, and I realize you're the only person who really sees me. Not the CEO, not the billionaire, just Riley. I see you, all of you. The brilliant executive and the woman who's afraid of trusting people. The powerful CEO and the person who almost died and is still dealing with that trauma. The strong leader and the lonely person who eats dinner alone most nights. I see all of it. And you still want to be here? I don't want to be anywhere else." Riley stood up, walked around her desk, stood in front of Christopher's chair. "This is a terrible idea. You work for me. We have a professional relationship. If this goes wrong, it could destroy everything we've built." "I know, but I don't care anymore. I'm tired of being afraid, tired of keeping everyone at a distance, tired of being lonely in a mansion surrounded by employees who don't actually know me. You know me, you see me, and I'm done pretending I don't have feelings for you." Christopher stood up. They were inches apart. "I have feelings for you too, have for months. I kept telling myself it was inappropriate, that I should maintain professional boundaries, but I can't anymore. I'm in love with you, Riley." "I'm in love with you too." They kissed, tentative at first, then deeper, both of them holding on like they were afraid the other might disappear, both of them finally admitting what they'd been feeling for months. When they pulled apart, Riley was smiling through tears. "What do we do now?" "We figure it out, together, one day at a time. Emma loves you. She's been asking when I'm going to marry you since about 3 months ago. She'll be thrilled." Riley laughed. "She asked you that?" 5-year-olds are perceptive and persistent. "She wants you to be part of our family." "I want that too, more than anything." They dated for a year, slowly, carefully, building a life together while navigating the complications of Riley being Christopher's boss. The first 3 months were complicated. They tried to keep the relationship private, professional at work, personal only outside the office, but hiding feelings was harder than either expected. Riley would catch herself staring at Christopher in meetings. Christopher would make excuses to stop by her office. Employees noticed, started whispering. "This isn't sustainable," Riley said 4 months in. They were having dinner at her estate. Emma was asleep upstairs in one of the guest rooms. "People are talking, wondering if you're getting preferential treatment because we're dating. If I'm compromising company security by being involved with my head of security. We need to address this. What do you want to do?" "I don't want to choose between you and professional integrity, but I also won't have people questioning your competence or my judgment. We need to change the structure." Christopher eventually transitioned to an advisory role instead of direct employee, eliminated the power dynamic, made their relationship more equal. Riley brought in a professional security firm to handle day-to-day operations, while Christopher consulted on strategy. It was the right decision professionally, but it was hard for Christopher. He'd enjoyed being back in security work, had felt purposeful again. Stepping back felt like another sacrifice, another thing given up for complications. Riley saw his struggle. "I know this isn't what you wanted, but I need you to understand. You're more important to me than having you on payroll. I'd rather have you as my partner than my employee. We can figure out the work part, but I don't want to lose what we're building personally. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just adjusting. Again, seems like I'm always adjusting my career for other priorities." "Is that resentment?" Christopher considered it honestly. "No, it's reality. I chose Emma over investigation work. Now I'm choosing us over security work. Every choice has costs. I'm okay with the costs as long as the relationship is worth it." "Is it worth it? You're asking if you're worth giving up a job I've had for less than a year? Riley, you're worth more than that. You're worth everything." Emma adjusted to having Riley in their lives with the ease of children. Started calling her Riley instead of Ms. Whitmore. Would climb into Riley's lap during movie nights. Asked for Riley's help with homework. Accepted her as a part of their family unit. But it wasn't always smooth. 6 months into Riley and Christopher's relationship, Emma had a breakdown. "You're not my mom," she screamed at Riley during an argument about bedtime. "You can't tell me what to do. My mom died. You're just Dad's girlfriend. You don't get to replace her." Riley was devastated. Christopher found her crying in the kitchen after Emma went to bed. "I'm sorry, she didn't mean it." "Yes, she did. And she's right. I'm not her mother. I'll never be Sarah. I'm trying to figure out my place in her life, but I don't know what that is. I don't know how to be a parental figure to a child who already lost a mother. What if she never accepts me? What if I'm always just the woman who's dating her dad?" "She's 7. She's processing grief and change and fear. She loves you. She just doesn't know how to handle loving you without feeling like she's betraying her mother's memory. We'll work through it. Together." They did work through it. Christopher talked to Emma about feelings, about how loving Riley didn't mean forgetting Sarah, about how people could have more than one important person in their lives, about how Riley wasn't trying to replace her mother. She was just trying to be someone who cared about Emma. Emma apologized to Riley the next day. "I'm sorry I said you're not my mum. You're not my mum who died. But you're my mum who's here. Is that okay? Can I have 2 mums even though one is gone?" Riley hugged Emma and cried happy tears. "That's more than okay. That's perfect." Riley learned to balance work and personal life, to leave the office at reasonable hours, to be present for family dinners, to prioritize relationships alongside business. Christopher taught her that success wasn't just measured in profit margins. It was measured in moments, in laughter, in time spent with people you loved. She started delegating more at work, hired executives she trusted to handle day-to-day operations, focused on strategy instead of micromanaging, discovered that the company didn't collapse when she wasn't there 80 hours a week. In fact, it thrived. Employees were more creative when given autonomy. Decisions were made faster without bottlenecks waiting for Riley's approval. "I've been doing it wrong for years," Riley admitted to Christopher one night. "I thought I had to control everything. Thought if I wasn't personally involved in every decision, things would fall apart. But they're actually better when I trust people to do their jobs." That's what good leadership is. Trusting your team, not trying to do everything yourself. When did you become so wise about leadership? "I've been learning from the best. This brilliant CEO I'm dating who's slowly figuring out how to be human instead of just being a machine." Riley laughed. "A machine? That's harsh." "It's accurate. When I met you, you were all work and no life. Now you're building a life. That's growth." On the 3rd anniversary of the day, Christopher stopped Riley's funeral, he proposed. Took her back to the funeral home chapel where they'd first met. Got down on one knee in the same spot where he'd stood 3 years earlier and demanded they open her casket. "Riley Whitmore, 3 years ago I saved your life in this room. Best decision I ever made. Not because you became my boss or my girlfriend, but because you became my person. The woman I trust. The woman I love. The woman who makes Emma light up when she walks into a room. The woman who challenges me and respects me and sees me for who I really am. Will you marry me?" Riley was crying. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." The wedding was small. 50 people. Intimate. Meaningful. Not the 300-person corporate spectacle Riley's father would have demanded. This was their wedding. Their way. Emma was flower girl, wearing a dress she picked herself, bright pink with tulle and sparkles, because Emma had strong opinions about fashion and refused to wear boring colors. She took her role seriously, practiced walking down the aisle for a week, made Christopher promise she could throw real flower petals, not fake ones. Riley wore a simple white dress, elegant but understated. No $20,000 designer gown, no cathedral train. Just a beautiful dress that made her feel like herself. Christopher wore a suit he'd bought for the occasion, the first truly expensive suit he'd ever owned, purchased with money from his consulting work, not borrowed or second-hand. The ceremony was at Pleasant View Funeral Home Chapel, the same place where Christopher had stopped Riley's funeral 3 years earlier. The funeral director had been hesitant at first. "Are you sure? It's an unusual choice for a wedding." "It's where we met," Riley had said. "Where Christopher saved my life. Where our story started. I can't think of a more meaningful place to get married." The chapel was decorated simply. White flowers, candles, soft music. 50 guests filled the pews. Friends, family, employees who'd become genuine friends over the years. Christopher's former police partner was best man. Riley's college roommate was maid of honor. Emma stood between them, holding the rings with the gravity of someone entrusted with precious cargo. The officiant was Father Michael from the church Christopher and Emma attended. He'd known Christopher since Sarah died, had watched him navigate grief and single parenthood, had counseled him through the decision to leave investigation work, had been thrilled when Christopher introduced Riley. "We are gathered here today," Father Michael began, "to witness the marriage of two people who found each other in the most unusual circumstances." Riley and Christopher's story isn't a typical romance. It started with danger, with near death, with one person seeing what others missed and refusing to stay silent. But from that dramatic beginning, they built something beautiful, a partnership, a family, a love that has already weathered more challenges than most couples face in a lifetime. Today, they choose to make that partnership official, to promise each other forever. They wrote their own vows. Riley went first. Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. "Christopher, you saved my life. But you did more than that. You taught me to live again. After the poisoning, I was afraid of everything. Afraid to trust. Afraid to connect. afraid to let anyone close. I'd built walls around myself and told myself those walls were protection. They weren't. They were a prison. You showed me that being vulnerable wasn't weakness, that trusting people was worth the risk, that life was meant to be lived, not just survived. You gave me a family, a daughter who calls me her bonus mom, and who taught me that love isn't about biology. It's about showing up. A partner who sees me, really sees me, not just the CEO or the billionaire or the ice queen, but the woman underneath all those labels, and stays. You gave me a future I didn't think was possible, a future where I come home to people who actually care if I'm there, where success is measured in laughter and family dinners and Emma's soccer games, where I'm more than my job title. I love you, not for saving my life that day in the casket, but for saving me every day since by choosing me, by seeing me, by loving all of me, even the parts I didn't think were lovable. I choose you, every single day, in caskets and out of them, in funerals and weddings, in all of it. There wasn't a dry eye in the chapel. Emma was crying. Christopher's mother was crying. Even the funeral director in the back was wiping his eyes. Christopher's voice shook as he spoke. Riley, the first time I saw you, you were in a casket. Not the most romantic meet-cute. Nervous laughter from the guests. But I saw you fighting to survive. Saw the tears on your face. Saw someone who refused to give up even when paralyzed and helpless. That strength is what I fell in love with. Not your money or your success or your pharmaceutical empire. Your strength, your resilience, your refusal to let fear win. You've made me a better man, a better father, a better person. You've shown Emma what it looks like when strong women lead, when women refuse to be limited by what others expect, when women choose their own path. You've built a family with us. Let Emma into your life when you didn't have to. Loved her like she was yours. Gave her a mother figure when I thought she'd never have that again. You've shown me that I can be a father and still have a partner, that I don't have to choose between Emma and love, that there's room in my life for both. I love you. I'll spend the rest of my life being worthy of the trust you've placed in me, being the man you deserve, being the father Emma deserves, being part of the family we're building together. I promise to always see you, to always choose you, to never let work or fear or complications come between us, to love you when you're strong and when you're vulnerable, when you're the brilliant CEO and when you're the woman crying in your office on the anniversary of almost dying. I promise all of it, forever. Father Michael smiled through tears. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Christopher, you may kiss your bride. They were pronounced married, kissed while everyone cheered and cried. Emma threw flower petals with enthusiasm, covering them both in pink and white petals. Photographers captured the moment, Christopher lifting Riley from her seat, kissing her while rose petals fell around them, Emma cheering in the background, 50 people celebrating. But the only moment that mattered was the two of them, finally, together, building the life they both deserved. The reception was at Riley's estate, a tent in the backyard, string lights, a small band. Dinner and dancing and speeches. Christopher's best man told embarrassing stories from their police days. Riley's maid of honor shared memories of college Riley, who'd been all ambition and no balance, and expressed gratitude that Christopher had taught her how to live. Emma gave a speech too. She'd insisted, stood up at the microphone with notes on index cards. I'm 7 years old and I've had 2 moms. My first mom was named Sarah, and she died when I was little. I don't remember her much, but Dad says she loved me a lot. My new mom is Riley, and she's here, and I love her a lot too. Some people think you can only have one mom, but I think you can have as many moms as love you. Dad says Riley isn't replacing Mom Sarah. She's just being Mom Riley. And that's okay. Dad also says that when my mom Sarah died, he thought he'd never love anyone again. But then he met Riley and realized you can love new people without forgetting old people. That love doesn't run out. It just grows. So today I'm happy because my dad married Riley, and now we're a real family. All of us. Forever. Emma looked at Riley. I love you, Mom Riley. Riley was sobbing. Christopher was sobbing. Half the guests were sobbing. Emma beamed, proud of her speech, and sat down to thunderous applause. 5 years later they sat in their backyard watching Emma, now 12, practice soccer with her team. Riley coached from the sidelines, shouting encouragement and strategic advice. Christopher grilled burgers, their 3-year-old son James helping by supervising from his playpen nearby. Riley had stepped back from day-to-day operations at Whitmore Pharmaceuticals, served as board chair but hired a CEO to run operations, wanted more time with family, more balance, more life outside of quarterly earnings. The decision had been difficult. Riley had built her entire identity around running the company. But after James was born, she realized she was missing his childhood, the same way her father had missed hers. Missing first words and first steps because she was in board meetings. Missing bedtime stories because she was reviewing financial reports. I don't want to be my father, Riley had told Christopher when she was considering stepping back. I don't want my kids to grow up knowing the company mattered more than they did. I don't want to wake up one day and realize I spent my life building a pharmaceutical empire, but I don't actually know my own children. Christopher had supported the decision completely. You've already proven you can run the company. You don't have to keep proving it. Let someone else handle operations. You focus on strategy and family. Find the balance your father never found. So Riley had transitioned to board chair. Hired Marcus Chen, no relation to Victoria, thoroughly vetted by Christopher's investigation firm, as CEO. Discovered that the company actually ran better when she wasn't micromanaging every decision. That trusting competent people to do their jobs produced better results than trying to control everything personally. I never thought I'd have this, Riley said quietly, watching Emma score a goal and celebrate with her teammates. A husband, children, a family that actually feels like family. After the poisoning, I thought I'd spend the rest of my life afraid, alone, building walls to keep everyone out, living in that mansion eating takeout at my desk, working 80-hour weeks because I had nothing else, no one else. I thought that was what success looked like. Christopher pulled her close. You deserved all of this. You just needed to find the right people, people who saw you as more than a billionaire CEO, people who valued you for who you are, not what you can provide. I got lucky. You saw me when I was literally in a casket. Most romantic stories start with coffee or dating apps or being set up by friends. Ours started with you stopping my funeral because you noticed condensation around a ventilation hole. That's the least conventional meet cute in history. Best decision I ever made, even if it was the most dramatic way to meet someone, even if 300 people thought I was insane, even if I risked my job and my reputation. I saw you trying to signal you were alive and I couldn't walk away. Something in me knew you were worth fighting for. Riley laughed. Do you ever regret it? Choosing this life instead of staying as a janitor with a simple, quiet existence? No billionaire drama, no attempted murder investigations, no corporate espionage, just mopping floors and raising Emma in peace. Never, not once, you gave me purpose again. Gave Emma a mother who actually shows up for her school events and soccer games and homework help. Gave us both a family. Gave me back the investigative work I loved in a form that let me be present for Emma. How could I regret any of that? Emma ran over, sweaty and beaming. Did you see my goal? Did you see the fake out I did? I saw it. That was amazing. That defender had no idea you were going left." Riley high-fived her. "Can we have ice cream to celebrate?" "Absolutely. Go tell your team we're going for ice cream." Emma ran off to gather her teammates. James babbled from his playpen, reaching for his father. Christopher picked him up, settled him on his hip. "Thank you," Riley said softly. "For what?" "For seeing me, for saving me, for building this life with me, for showing me that being buried alive was the worst thing that could have happened, and also the thing that led me to you. For proving that sometimes the person everyone thinks is dead is the only one who's truly alive. For teaching me that success isn't about how much money you make or how many companies you run. It's about the people you love and the moments you share, and whether you can look at your life and feel genuinely happy instead of just professionally accomplished." Christopher held her close with one arm, James balanced on his other hip. "You saved me too. I was just existing before you, going through the motions, raising Emma but not really living, working as a janitor and telling myself I was content but feeling hollow inside, missing the work I loved, missing having a partner. You taught me that I could be a father and still have purpose beyond parenting, could love my daughter and still have room for someone else, could build a family that honored Sarah's memory while also moving forward. You gave me permission to live again instead of just surviving, to find joy again after loss, to believe I could have a second chance at love without betraying my first love." They sat together watching their family, Emma celebrating with her teammates, confident and strong and kind, James babbling happily in his father's arms. The life they'd built from the ashes of trauma and loss. Riley had been minutes away from being buried alive. Christopher had risked everything to save her. That moment in the funeral home chapel had changed both their lives forever. Victoria and Marcus had been convicted, both serving 25-year sentences for attempted murder. Justice had been served. But more importantly, Riley had survived, had rebuilt, had refused to let fear win. "Do you ever think about that day?" Christopher asked. "The funeral, being in the casket?" "Sometimes. Mostly I think about how you noticed what everyone else missed, how you trusted your instincts, how you were willing to look crazy in front of 300 people to do the right thing. That's the kind of person I want in my life, the kind who does the right thing even when it's hard. You would have done the same for me. I hope so. I like to think I would. But I'm grateful I never had to find out. I'm grateful you were there. Grateful you saw me. Grateful you saved me." They were quiet for a moment. Then Riley said, "Emma asked me yesterday if I was scared when I was in the casket. What did you tell her?" "The truth, that I was terrified, that I couldn't move or scream or do anything except wait to be buried alive, that it was the worst experience of my life, but also that it led me to the best parts of my life, to your dad, to our family, to this moment right here." "What did she say?" "She said that sometimes bad things happen so good things can find you, that maybe I had to almost die so I could learn how to really live." Christopher felt tears in his eyes. She's wise beyond her years. She gets it from you. You taught her that doing hard things is worth it, that saving people matters, that family is what you build, not just what you're born into. Emma ran back over. "Dad! Riley! Ice cream time! Everyone's ready!" They loaded into the car, Emma, James, Riley, Christopher, and drove to the ice cream shop. A normal family doing normal things. But there was nothing normal about their story. A billionaire CEO poisoned by her assistant and cousin, left to die in a casket, saved at the last moment by a janitor who noticed what everyone else missed. A janitor who became head of security, who became a partner, who became a husband, who became the father of her child. A love story that started in a funeral home and ended in a family. Sometimes the person trying to kill you is the person you trust most. Sometimes the person who saves you is a stranger with nothing to gain. Sometimes the greatest love stories start with the smallest observations. Sometimes being buried alive is the thing that teaches you how to truly live. Riley and Christopher proved all of it. Every single day. Together. Building a life that honored their pasts while embracing their future. Showing Emma and James that family was about choosing each other. That love was about seeing someone and staying. That heroes were ordinary people who did extraordinary things because it was the right thing to do. The billionaire's funeral had been stopped. The woman everyone thought was dead was alive. The villain had been caught. Justice had been served. And the single dad janitor who'd noticed what everyone else missed had built a beautiful life with the woman he'd saved. The best kind of happy ending there is, not perfect, but real, built on truth and trust, and two people who refused to let trauma define them, who chose love over fear, who built a family from the broken pieces of their pasts. Riley Whitmore had been minutes from being buried alive. Christopher Kane had saved her life, and in doing so, they'd both learned that sometimes dying, or almost dying, is what teaches you how to live.